Welcome to Module 2, From Outline to Summary. I'm going to assume that you have completed the outline assigned at the end of Module 1. If not, go do that now, then come back to this module. Outlining helps us make sense of the structure of a text. Often, however, you can use an outline to create a summary. Here is an example outline summarizing a pretend article about the solar eclipse. So major point 1, the solar eclipse drew many people to Middle Tennessee. Then you have a 1.1, a subpoint, Middle Tennessee State University hosted a large event, and so on. Major point 2, a full solar eclipse is rare. Subpoints under that. For example, the last time that this region experienced a full eclipse was prior to Columbus. Point 3, the solar eclipse generated large crowds, with a couple subpoints under that. A summary is like a movie trailer, and yes, it does spoil the plot. It tells the reader in a shorter explanation what was said in a longer passage. So I will use the big ideas about the eclipse in Middle Tennessee to create a summary. So here are the three main points in my outline. The solar eclipse drew many people to Middle Tennessee, a full solar eclipse is rare, and the solar eclipse generated large crowds. So to summarize, I might say large crowds gathered in Middle Tennessee to observe the rare event of a solar eclipse. People gathered at venues like Middle Tennessee State University to experience this phenomenon together. To summarize, state the main ideas, the most important details, and/or the main argument of a text. Exclude smaller details and condense the larger ones. And make sure you understand what the text is saying so that you can summarize using your own words. There may be a difference between main ideas of paragraphs and the main argument that an author is trying to make. So let's go back to the passage that we looked at in Module 1 as an example. And let's take this second paragraph. Structurally, the main idea of this paragraph was racialism deepening. The rest of the paragraph explained how this happened, how racialism deepened. However, the author wants us to know why this happened. One reason mentioned in this paragraph was prejudice, which was a response to interacting with people who were culturally and racially different than whites in the U.S. at the time. So that was why it talked about immigration from Eastern and Southern Europe, for example. But the author seems to emphasize another point, a politically driven motive, right here. It turns out this point is what the author continues to discuss in this section. Look at the next paragraph. Mississippi, where Democrats had led the move to redeem their state, redeem in quotations, from the Republican Reconstruction, in 1890 took the lead in disenfranchising African Americans. A new state constitution required voters to pay a poll tax and pass a literacy test, requirements that eliminated a great majority of black voters. Conservative Democrats favored the plan because it also reduced the voting power of poor whites, who were most likely to join opposition parties. So I'm thinking about Southern Democrats. And by the way, don't think Democratic Party today. This is history. But Southern Democrats then controlling voting to keep poor whites and blacks from gaining power. There's an important word here. It's disenfranchise. It comes up a couple more times. If you're not familiar with this word, stop now and look it up. Now let's look at the third paragraph. The disenfranchisement campaign had one final consequence, splitting rebellious whites from blacks. Okay, so this is starting to make sense, I hope, that this theme is running through this text. So clearly, political motivation of Southern Democrats to incite racism to maintain power is central to the author's argument in the whole passage. So I could create an outline that made disenfranchisement, I hope you looked it up if you didn't know what it meant, It could make this a heading, right? Racism used to disenfranchise poor black and white voters. Well, how did that happen? There was a political motivation behind racism. Okay, in other words, we're inciting people to uh, have these kinds of attitudes. There's a poll tax that the article talked about in Mississippi, and there's a literacy test. Does this change the way that you want to structure your outline? I'm talking about the one that you made after Module 1. So the point of all of these exercises that we are doing is to understand the message of the text. As you reread a text, it's going, or it's good that you were thinking, yeah, I can't read the outline today. As you reread a text, it's good that you were thinking, okay. Try it one more time. As you reread a text, it is good that your thinking changes about what the author is saying. There, I got it. So let's say a couple more things about summaries. Summaries do not need to be less formal. Here's an example of what not to do. Someone writes, basically this passage is about how African American people living in the South were disenfranchised. The author told us that there are many ways disenfranchisement happened. Notice how much space is wasted by my extra words. Here's a better example. White Southern Democrats, wanting to maintain political control, used several means of disenfranchisement to keep poor whites from uniting with African Americans. One tactic was promoting racist ideas of white supremacy. Other tactics included poll taxes and literacy tests, and you could go on from there. You see how that neatly, precisely says what the entire passage was about? Here's an assignment. Print the text, Prologue, A Death in Georgia, which was provided by Dr. Turner. Create an outline of this text. That's you on your own paper writing an outline. This text is narrative, so pay attention to key events. You can choose whether to outline by paragraph or another method of organizing if it's more appropriate. In class, you will use the outline that you make to help summarize what happened to Sam Hose and the events that followed. So again, you need to read A Death in Georgia, create an outline of the text, and come into class ready to summarize. Thank you so much.